Hi there, this is Jonathan Ginsberg. I'm a Social Security disability attorney, and today I'd like to talk to you about why your work history matters even more today than it has in the past in your Social Security disability case. Now, if you've looked at some of my other videos, you know I've talked a lot about work history and why that's important, and specifically it's important because judges recognize that if you've got a long work history, that really enhances your credibility. People don't stop working, making $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year to sit at home for 2 years waiting for Social Security to possibly approve their case. So my experience generally is if you have a long, consistent work history, that's going to work in your favor. Judges appreciate that. But let me take it a step further. I think that if you've been in a work history where you've been dealing with toxins, let's say environmental toxins, or you've had a job where it's been very physically demanding, that can be really relevant. And it's very important that you talk about that with your attorney and with the judge. And let me give you an example. I have a case that I've been working on with a client who has worked in a nail salon. And if you've ever been to a nail salon, the fumes are just overwhelming. And in this lady's case, she had worked in a nail salon for more than 10 years, not making a whole lot of money. But because of the fumes, the constant exposure to fumes, she has developed both cognitive issues, meaning that her processing is slower. She has a hard time concentrating and focusing. And she also has breathing problems. It's not exactly a COPD, but it's kind of close. It's almost a form of asthma. She's got breathing issues, and it makes it very difficult for her to do very much of anything. She's pretty miserable most of the time. Again, she can't really focus and think, and she is very susceptible to colds. She doesn't like temperature extremes, fumes, dust. Those sort of things really affect her quite negatively. Now, in a vacuum, I will tell you that people with cognitive deficits that's not really tied to anything organic, in other words, not getting hit on the head, it can be very difficult to win disability because judges hear cognitive deficits and it's very subjective. And again, if there's a reason, the judge might like it, but for the most part, people can walk in and say, I can't think, I can't focus and concentrate. And again, it's very hard to say whether they're telling the truth or not, or to what degree they have problems. And the same thing with asthma or breathing issues. It's one of these things that, yes, there are tests for it, but people can, they can try harder or less hard on the test. And just generally, my experience has been that judges are not real receptive to just plain asthma claims because I think a lot of people have it and the degree of severity can be difficult to identify. But if you have a situation like my client where she has breathing issues that are related to long-term exposure to hazardous gas and fumes, then a judge is going to be a lot more willing to accept that, yes, it's reasonable to expect that a person exposed to toxic fumes for 10 years is going to have cognitive problems or is going to have breathing issues. And so even though conditions that on their face might be a little weaker in another case are going to be winners when I'm dealing with a situation where I've got long-term exposure to hazardous substances. So that's an example of how that works. Same thing, if you're complaining of back pain and the MRI doesn't show a herniated disc or maybe it shows a bulging disc, but you've been in a job where you've been on your feet on a concrete floor for 15 years and you've been walking and climbing stairs and hauling boxes, heavy boxes, on a concrete floor, and you really have not had any relief from that for 15 years, a judge is going to say, okay, I can understand how this type of pain might develop from that type of work experience. So my point here is that if you have been at a job where you've been exposed to toxins, you've had long-term exposure to concrete floors, that sort of thing, you may just sort of accept this is how your life has been and not really think about the impact that has had on you over a long period of time. But in a disability case, it can be really important. So that's something that you want to talk about to your lawyer to make sure that the lawyer understands what you have done over what period of time and maybe some special circumstances that might make your testimony more credible than the next guy because, again, you've been exposed to toxins for 15 years. You've been on a concrete floor for 10 or 15 years. I remember I had a case one time with a gentleman who had driven a truck with not great suspension for a long time, and he'd been had vision issues because of bright lights, and he had back issues because of the suspension. All that's very relevant, and again, I think if the judge understands your work background, that can go a long way to making him recognize that your subjective complaints of pain, discomfort, vision issues, breathing issues, whatever the case may be, are credible given the work history. But you've got to let the judge know about the work history. And again, that's something that you and your attorney would practice ahead of time so that it's very clear. In my case, I might write a pre-hearing brief to really emphasize that so that the judge knows it is very, very clear and it's on the record. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Leave me a comment on YouTube. Give it a like on Facebook, wherever else you see it. And of course, let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about in forthcoming videos. Very much appreciated. Again, Jonathan Ginsberg here, and have a nice day. Thanks a lot.